Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Season 3, Episode 9, Return to New York. Now, starting off just from the beginning of this episode, we get a brand new opening. I didn't realize this last week. I'd basically been skipping over all the openings, but I felt like I had to watch like the whole episode because it was their return to New York. So I actually went back to last week's episode, and they added in like one new scene, which was when they showed all the enemies, and it kind of went from like the Kraang and the Foot all the way up to Shredder at the top. And in this episode, we even got more stuff. We got the new turtle mobile. I can't remember exactly what they called it. The party wagon. We got the party wagon in there. We got them in their new costumes. So when it goes to like the comic book style, it switches to the other costumes. And that was really cool. I really loved that. I wish we got to see them use their other weapons because it seemed like it was almost a wasted opportunity with them having such an amazing episode last week, and they do the vision quest and they get all the different weapons, and Leo has the arrows, and Raph has like the little flamethrowers and all that stuff, and they didn't use that at all in this episode, and that really sucks because seemed like it was kind of the point. They didn't have to be in those costumes again, which still would have been really cool because it was technically only one episode, but if they at least used the weapons, I think it would have been utilized a lot more. I still love the episode completely. Had like unbelievable. It was just an unbelievable use of time, so it was really well done. But I do wish we got to see them use their alternate weapons, especially for Leo. I think it would have been perfect because he lost both of his swords. I can't remember his sais or kasais or whatever they're called. I can't remember. They're like wakazashis really, but he doesn't call them that. But he lost both of those, and it would have been like the perfect thing to have him just like use a bow and arrow. It probably wouldn't have worked, and Splinter would have came in anyway and saved all of them, but it would have made perfect sense. Like, he lost both his weapons, which I also thought was kind of funny because he lost I believe one of his katanas just before they left in like that final big battle. Before they went to the forest, he had lost one and he had to remake that one. And then I think he lost his second one when they had like the horror episode and like the plants got mutated, and I think he lost both, and he basically had to make two new katanas. And then it was kind of funny. They get right back, and then he loses both of them all over again. One gets chopped by the pincer, and the other falls in mutagen. So I thought that was kind of funny too. It was just like interesting to think about that, and I don't know why I even remembered that, but it was just something that as soon as it happened, I was like, oh yeah, he lost both of his. Like, as soon as they left New York, he lost both, and then as soon as they come back, he lost both all over again. So that was kind of interesting. But I love the action in this episode. Love the ninja, the ninjing all around this episode. It was really cool. A lot of the like full-on white eyes. They did that a lot in the beginning of this episode, which was great. I loved that. That was really cool. Like I said, the action was really cool. Them getting the Splinter was really great. I was glad that they were able to resolve that as soon as they got back, because that's what I was hoping for, was that April would be able to help Splinter, and then he would help save the turtles and just beat up all the little mutant shredders. And he did, which was definitely cool. And the action scene was great. We got to see Baxter Stockman in like his new lab. That was pretty cool. The new mutant shredders that he created, when they first had like that little one, the first thing that popped into my mind, I actually thought that maybe it was like a Kraang shredder. And it kind of made me think, they're kind of hinting towards the fact that at some point, human Shredder will probably, end up losing and dying, and then they'll go down that storyline where the Shredder is replaced with the Kraang Shredder, and I thought that was kind of cool. So they still could be, because technically, it's a mutant, and that I would have to assume comes from, the Kraang sort of is the mutagen and all of that. So they could still technically be hinting towards that in the future, and odds are, considering how they do the series, they're going to follow some of the big story points. So whenever that does happen, it'll be great. But I thought it was cool to see that. It was like a little glimpse, like, hey, for anyone who knows like the mythos, or if you watch like the old TMNT show, you probably know a lot of the series if you're old enough to remember that, like I do, because for a lot of people that was their first Ninja Turtle show, and that went through a ton of the actual comic book lore, and we're really getting into that, which I really love. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. But it was cool to see like the mutant shredders. It was cool to see the action that we got. It was nice to see all the characters again. Like, we technically just saw like a lot of the villains in the last episode through the Vision Quest, but they were actually in New York this time, and that was pretty cool. I did love the fact that we got to see the cartoon in this episode as the start, because that was the thing when they transitioned from New York to the forest. The cartoon went from like that Voltron type of show to the He-Man type of show, and it was kind of funny. Like I really love this one because they had the character that switched faces, so it was exactly like Man at Arms and stuff, and that was kind of funny to see. And I think they did that because if they happen to get TV, I doubt they'll be getting television, and if they do, it'll all be VHS stuff. With them getting back to New York, they might do like a third series now, because if I remember correctly, when they did the season 2 finale before they left to the forest, it was like the series finale of the little Voltron, anime series that Michelangelo was watching. So they might come out with like a third sort of parody anime, cartoon type of series, and I'd love that because those are always really silly and over the top. The leader's always smacking somebody. Like in this one, the leader smacked a guy. In the other one, the guy was always smacking everybody else. Like he would just slap him, like calm down. And I always loved that. It was really silly, but I thought it was cool that that's how they started it, because we really haven't seen that in a while. Like Mikey just watching one of the cartoons, and I really can't remember when the last time was, because the episodes have been like so far apart. So it'd been a really long time since we actually saw them watching that cartoon. But we might get a third one, and that's just like a minor thing, obviously. But it was something I noticed. They started it off with basically the Forest cartoon, because Mikey finished the other one. So now that they're back in New York, he might go to back to a more robot-based type of show or something like that. But I'm actually excited for that, because I always think that's like a cool little reference point, in the series, where they can make all the references they want. It's always based off of one thing, or two things. I guess the first one was really like a mix between Star Trek and Voltron, and then the second one was like straight up He-Man, and it was kind of like Conan the Barbarian as well, I guess. So I'm excited to see what third little silly cartoon they come up with. And they're going to be in a new base. They're going to be in the pizza shop, of course. I thought that was pretty cool. And, it seems small from what they showed. They only showed, like, the main area. But there's, of course going to be, like, the storage area and all this stuff, where all the items will be packed. So it's probably going to end up being much bigger when we actually get to explore it. Also, it is New York, so it could actually be attached to, like, the upper levels of the building. I believe it was, like, an apartment building on top. I could be wrong. But I'm excited to see how they change this place, because they can't make it too obvious, because they can't have like lights just shooting out of it between like the little boards on the outside. But it'll be cool to see how they change it up and how they use that as their new base. What crazy cool stuff Donnie comes up with to like hide the party wagon and the little like speed racing or drag racing car that Casey has. It'll be cool to see what they do, and just how they utilize the space that they're in right now. And the way the episode ended was really interesting, with April having this weird sort of psychic link, and she was basically sensing the energy, I guess, of the other dimension, of Dimension X. And that was really interesting. And it was just like mutated, all the humans that got mutated were taken over to Dimension X. And it seemed like they were just walking around with shopping carts. Like, it's kind of just a normal thing now, and they're keeping them captive. But I guess they're like sentient enough to, shop and have daily activities. And maybe, they're not sentient enough to know that they've been mutated and they can't remember their past lives, which typically does happen. For the most part, you kind of just go nuts and turn into this monster. And considering it was like the complete takeover / invasion in the last season, that's probably the route they're going to go with, where no one really remembers it, but they have like just enough consciousness to kind of just do simple stuff like, I gotta go shopping, I gotta eat food, and they're all just off in Dimension X. But I love this episode. It was great to see Splinter instantly get healed. That was probably my favorite part, because I didn't want to see Splinter going crazy. It was cool in the beginning. It was also kind of sad, because it's like he was just going nuts and stuff, and it was interesting to see him without his robe. It was really weird. Also, he had underwear on, which I thought was really interesting. Like, he had like human clothes on, and that never really dawned on me, like, without his robe, he's not just a rat. He like has like the little bandages and stuff, and he had like underwear and stuff. So I thought that was kind of weird to see, but it was great that he came back. We're gonna get to see him, really be Splinter in these next episodes. He sounded the same. I mentioned this in the last episode. He sounded different when he was like in his spirit form, but he sounded like the regular actor in this episode. It could have just been that one. I always feel like he sounds different after it's been a really long time. but it always ends up being the same guy. He just sounds a little different in some of the episodes sometimes. But it was a great episode. I cannot wait for the next one. I hope they find Karai, and I just don't know what to expect with Karai's storyline, because she can turn human and then turn into her serpent form, and she has like a million things going through her head. I'm sure even after all this time, she of course can't go to Shredder. That's not really your father. Especially he locked her up once she wanted to leave and find out the truth about stuff. So she can't go to him. I'm sure she thought like Splinter was dead. She saved him, so she technically knew he was alive, I guess. But went nuts. She probably saw him like going crazy and knew she couldn't do anything to help. So I'm sure we'll get some of those answers as well. But I'm excited to see her. I can't wait to see like this insane war between the Foot and the Kraang. That's what I'm really hoping to see. And who knows how long that's gonna take. I don't know if they're gonna like it's gonna end up being a three-way war, and the Turtles, of course, unfortunately, are gonna be like stuck in the middle of two enemies who would rather destroy the Turtles than each other, I'm sure. But a great first start to getting back to New York. I think the episodes are really going to be ramping up. Hopefully things aren't going to, keep breaking like they normally do. I'm sure that's going to happen at some point, and it's really going to suck now that they're back in New York. But I love the episode, of course. I want to know what you guys thought, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and what do you guys think is going to happen with Karai next week? Like, what's going to happen, because I know that with her being able to change, I'm assuming they're going to be able to figure that out in the next episode. They're going to see her in her human form when they find her, or maybe she'll just turn into her human form, and the preview is that someone else gets mutated, so I don't really know what's going to happen there. I have to assume whoever gets mutated, it's going to be temporary no matter what, because if it's the Turtles, they'll get like super mutated, or Splinter in this case, that would happen too. Casey and April, same thing. I have to assume that no matter who it is, it'll be temporary, if it's even one of them, because it's a preview. They always, say like this is gonna happen, and then it's basically they just say stuff, and then it'll be like, oh, that's like a random nobody that we've never seen before. So any of that stuff could happen as well. But what do you guys think is gonna happen with Karai? And also, what did you guys think of this return to New York? I thought, like I said, of course, obviously I love the episode. I'm really enjoying what we're seeing out of this episode. A nice little interesting sort of ending. Like, it makes you kind of think, like, is she sensing this other dimension? Is it because they're in the same location? What is happening with all the mutated humans? Like, why are they shopping and all this other stuff? So of course I loved it. But like I said, I want to know what you guys think about that, as well as what's happening with Karai. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.